I move to First Minister's question. Question number one, Johann Lamont.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. If I may depart from protocol for a second in this very important week, because of course I've often disagreed with him, frequently I've complained about his tactics and his way of going about things, but I do not doubt his commitment to Scotland, which we all share in different ways. So I ask the whole Parliament right now to pay tribute to Craig Levein. And may I, of course, congratulate the First Minister on his longevity, and may I ask him what engagements he has planned for the rest of the day.
First Minister.
Well, I think the whole chamber should congratulate President Obama on his re-election to the greatest democracy in the world. And Glasgow Celtic over their outstanding victory over what many people think is the greatest team in the world.
Johann Lamont.
I have absolutely no difficulty in agreeing with the First Minister on those two counts. First Minister, according to Audit Scotland, the NHS has an outstanding £1 billion bill in terms of repairs. We have lost more than 2,000 nurses. The First Minister has imposed real-term cuts to the NHS of almost £200 million. Yesterday, the Auditor-General, Caroline Gardner, said the NHS in Scotland was on, and I quote, an amber warning. Does the First Minister agree with the Auditor-General?
First Minister.
Well, the Audit Scotland report obviously pointed out that Scotland's health service was well managed in terms of its finances. I know that Johann Lamont will want to concede now there are more people working in the National Health Service in Scotland than when the SNP took office. And more importantly, perhaps, on every single judgment of output on waiting lists, patient care, Scotland's National Health Service is performing in outstanding fashion.
Johann Lamont.
I have to say that the First Minister's breathtaking complacency in the face of a serious warning from the Auditor-General that the NHS is on an amber warning does him and his government no service whatsoever. People of this country deserve better. It is clear the First Minister doesn't agree with the Auditor-General then on the NHS. And when we said that the Scottish Government had cut spending on colleges by a quarter, both he and his Education Minister said we were wrong. They said we were scaremongering. The Auditor-General has now said, not once, but twice, that college budgets have been cut by 24% in real terms. Is she right, or is she scaremongering too?
First Minister.
Well, as far as the National Health Service is concerned, can I point out that this government has protected the spending of the health boards and revenue budget of the National Health Service in real terms? Yes. And just in case the former Deputy Leader of the Labour Party in Scotland forgets, when she was Deputy Leader, the Labour Party refused to make that commitment in last year's election campaign. And as far as Scotland's colleges are concerned, she knows that we've kept to our commitment on full-time equivalent courses in Scotland's colleges. And can I just point out to Johann Lamont that as we look forward, given the extraordinary capital investment that is going into Scotland's colleges at the present moment, that the total funding for Scotland's colleges is going to reach £655 million by 2014-15 in capital and revenue investment, which compares rather favourably not just with the funding now, but with the £217 million when the Labour Party took office in the first devolution Parliament. In that year, incidentally, the total capital investment in Scotland's colleges was £4 million. The expectation in 2014-15 is for £184 million.
Johann Lamont.
Charitable, I would say that's just white noise between the end of one question and the beginning of the next one. Because this is not... The First Minister wants this to be a theoretical argument between him and me. This is not. This is the independent voice of the Auditor-General saying there's a serious problem in the NHS and a serious problem in college funding, and he denies it. So let me get this right. When Campbell Christie, Crawford Beveridge and the former Auditor-General Robert Black say we need to face up to a public spending crisis, the First Minister says they are wrong. When the current Auditor-General says there's a cut in college funding, she says she is wrong. When the Auditor-General then says the NHS is in crisis, she's wrong again. If he won't listen to the people who count the numbers, maybe he will listen to the people who treat patients. Theresa Fife of the RCN says, "Not being frank about the pressures on our health service or transparent about how money is spent is storing up problems for the future. When will the First Minister face up to reality and be straight with the people of Scotland?"
First Minister.
Acknowledge the very substantial pressures on public services in Scotland, including the National Health Service. But can I put it to Johann Lamont that things would have been a great deal worse if the Labour Party had not defended the real-term increase in revenue spending in the National Health Service, which we committed to in the election, which the Labour Party refused to commit to, which is perhaps one of the reasons why she's sitting there and I'm standing here as First Minister of Scotland. Johann Lamont, I think, is edging towards in saying about the affordability of public services to her Cuts Commission. The review of the key pledges and promises which have defined not just the administration of the SNP but perhaps the devolution era, the commitment to having no tuition fees, so there's not an obstacle to our students going to university or college, the commitment for the pensioners so as they have free travel, so as they don't have to fear not being able to fund their care in infirmity. These are crucial gains of devolution, which Johann Lamont and her party are now putting at risk. These were things that they committed to only last year in the election, but are now all up for review in the bleak midwinter Cuts Commission. These are the things on which not just this party has been judged and re-elected, but on which the Labour Party will be judged and never elected on that platform.
Johann Lamont.
First of all, acknowledging pressures and funding is not the same as doing something about it, and that is his job. Secondly, I'm not edging towards anything. I'm asking the First Minister to listen to what the Auditor-General and to what nurses and to what doctors and to what people in public services are saying now about what's happening to their services. This is not an argument for an election. This is about understanding what is happening in the real world to ordinary people at this very time. We know the First Minister doesn't believe the Auditor-General or a predecessor. He doesn't believe the experts he himself appoints. Can I ask him, does he believe himself when he, Alex Salmond, said, and I quote, "Politicians should have a higher duty, and the duty is more to the economic cycle than the political cycle." Now, I read that to understand that politicians should always put the interests of their country before the interests of their party. So, when will he come and join the rest of us in the real world? When will he face up? When will he face up to the cuts happening now in the real world and the £3 billion worth of cuts he is delaying until after his referendum? Does Alex Salmond still believe Alex Salmond, or has he joined the rest of Scotland in not believing a word the First Minister says?
First Minister.
On points of correction, the Auditor-General never said that the National Health Service of Scotland was in crisis. On the contrary, the Auditor-General report pointed out that health boards were well managed, and Campbell Christie nor Crawford Beveridge ever called for real-term cuts in the National Health Service in Scotland. We have maintained real-term spending in the revenue of the National Health Service in Scotland, something that the Labour Party refused to do. That doesn't mean there's no pressure. How couldn't there be pressure when this government and every public service is facing the cuts from Westminster? But can I say to Johann Lamont that there is no solution to addressing the problem of cuts from Westminster than threatening, as the Labour Party is now doing, to cut the vital services to pensioners and students in Scotland. And this, well, she is the fourth Labour leader that I've faced across the chamber. I tell her if she pursues this line, she will certainly not be the last Labour leader that I face across this chamber, because she's putting forward to the people of Scotland right now the incredible proposition that somehow free care, personal care for the elderly is unaffordable, that free concessionary fares for the elderly are unaffordable, that abolition of student fees, tuition fees is unaffordable, and all the range of other things she wants to cut from the Scottish people, but she maintains the £163 million that Scotland currently contributes to the furbishment and refurbishment of the Trident missile system is somehow affordable. Labour Party maintain a position that spending on weapons of mass destruction is essential, but services for the people of Scotland can be dispensed with. On that programme, they shall never be re-elected in this Parliament.